All right, man, peace. So as many of you brothers know, Mother's Day recently passed, so-called Mother's Day. And as I'm filming this video, Father's Day, quote unquote, is going to arrive tomorrow. And many people ask me if I celebrate those so-called holidays, and I always respond no. Because number one, Mother's Day is meant to venerate the mother goddess, as Father's Day is meant to venerate Kush, or as he's also known, Pan. And in all reality, every day is Mother's Day and Father's Day. Why is that? Because when you have a great mother and a great father, they're supposed to illustrate to you what love and sacrifice is about. And what love is just loyalty and sacrifice. That's all it is. I say that all the time on this channel. And when you have a great mother and father, you're supposed to honor them every day, because they're the only ones that's going to have your back every day. Everyone else is going to change. Why am I bringing all this up? Because in this court case right here, this segment, this brother here by the name of Jihad Mahdi, he's going to show you the type of damage that someone can go through, be forced to endure and live with when they're raised, quote unquote, by someone that does not understand what love actually is. So of course they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Plaintiff Jihad Mahdi says the defendant is his mother, and he is ashamed to be here today because he was always taught to protect her.
Now, as you can see by the brother's attire, he understands that part of his lineage most likely goes back to the American Aboriginals.
Jihad claims from the time he was 5, the defendant always told him that she would love herself more than she would ever love him.
Now, did you hear what the narrator just stated? The narrator stated that according to the plaintiff, he was told from since he was 5 years old by his mother that she would always love herself more than she loves him. And that goes exactly contrary to what the dynamic of a parent and a child is actually about. Actually, a parent's supposed to love their child even more than they love themselves. Meaning what? That doesn't mean that necessarily you're willing to tolerate anything that your child does. All it means is that you're willing to give your life for your child. So when his mother told him that was her programming him to understand that he's just there just to be there. And that's why I say this all the time, man. Before you have a child, you're supposed to have a plan for that child. A child is like a stock. You have to invest in that stock. You have to invest in that child. And that's how you show the child that you care about their future. There's so many so-called black people today who are just having children just for the sake of having children, and then want to complain about poverty and how they can't raise their children. Well, if you can't raise them, don't have them. That's pretty much how that goes. That's known as accountability. Because when you cannot properly raise the child that you're having, or the children that you're having, all that's showing your child, you're laying out a blueprint for how not to plan. When you don't plan, I promise you, you're going to fail. And you're going to create another lost person in the world who's going to eventually resort to criminality. And normally, the criminality that they resort to is going to hurt and harm their own people. That's how that works, man. So that's why I always harp on what the so-called black man does. Please do not have children if you're not ready, and don't have children with females that don't respect the masculine principle, or who show you that they could be malicious. They can lack caring. The maternal DNA is very important. There's nothing like a mother's relationship with her child. I may have stated this in another video, but the vast majority of the times where animals attack people out in the wild, especially if it's a bear attack, it's because it's a female bear who thinks that a hiker or someone out there in the forest, in the woods, or what have you, is a threat to her cubs. Many of these attacks that you see regarding elephants and their trainers, oftentimes it's because of abuse, but it's also because many times the female elephant believes that someone may be a threat to her young. So the rapport between the mother and the child is probably the strongest bond in nature. And when you have a female who does not even show that she has traits of the maternal DNA, she's most likely showing you that she's a sadistic. And there are many people out there like that. And unfortunately, they have children. They don't know how to love properly. And the children grow up to be broke. And when I say broke, I don't mean monetarily. I mean spiritually broken.
And he's suing her today for an unpaid bill and emotional distress. Defendant Elandrol Simpson insists she helped.
Now you can look at this female and see she's all messed up in her head. Number one, she's bald-headed. She's most likely a lesbian. Look, and a lot of people are not going to like what I'm saying. She's most likely a lesbian. And there's a huge upswing in liberal black lesbians adopting black children. Once again, so-called black men, do not impregnate females if you don't intend on being a father over the child. And there's a lot that goes with that. Number one thing is making sure that we're ready to raise children. Number two, that the female that we're impregnating actually wants to be with you. Many of these females don't really want to be with you. They just want you to impregnate them so that they can run off with the child and make you an indentured servant to them. But I could just tell by this female right here, she hates men. She hates men because she wishes that she was a man. And sometimes the hatred for masculinity, for manhood, for the masculine principle is so strong that it even shows itself in how they view their sons.
Helped raise Jihad, along with her mother and grandmother, and she believes his perception of her is different from reality. Elandrol denies owing Jihad for anything.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
This is my mother. I feel ashamed that I have to shame my mother like this. I feel hurt about it. I was raised in Mississippi in the South by my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and they always told me, protect my mother, to honor my mother, and never hurt my mother's feelings.
Where was your mother when you were being raised by your grandmother and great-grandmother?
She was in the military, sir.
Okay. How many years?
3
Okay.
3 to 5, I think.
All right, so she was only gone from your life 3 to 5 years?
No, sir, I was still being raised by her. She was living in South Carolina. And,
How many years were you with her under the same roof?
My mother?
Yes.
2 years in elementary school, in 10th grade through the 12th.
Have the two of you always had a good relationship, or what has your relationship been
No,
like?
sir. Ever since I was 5 years old, my mother looked me in my eyes and told me that she always loved herself more than she ever loved me.
She told you that more than
Told
once?
me more, from a child all the way up to about 18 years old, my mother looked me dead in my eyes and tell me this, Your Honor.
Well, what she really was saying, brother, is that she doesn't love you. And the reason why she doesn't love you is because she doesn't love men. Most likely something happened in her childhood to make her feel a certain way about men. Maybe it was how she was raised. Maybe it was that she was molested. Maybe she was raped. Maybe the man that impregnated her to bring you into the world left her. But for a female to say that to her son at 5 years old, that's her way of telling the son that she does not love him. Maybe he looks too much like the father. Who knows?
Look me dead in my eyes. I would have rather her lock me in a closet.
That's pretty hard to believe.
I would have.
It's not really hard for me to believe, Judge Mathis. Many of these modern day females especially are sadistic. Once again, brothers, this is not a gender war channel. This is not a hate women channel. It's not a hate black women channel. The woman is beautiful when she's in her right mind. So it's up to you to make sure that you pick the right woman. Don't rush to impregnate the woman, man. All these children that's out here, some of them lost, they got here some type of way. That's why I state incessantly, I'm not interested in getting into the back and forth between the liberal female. The liberal female is set here as a prop to cause a distraction all the time, to get you into circular arguments that go nowhere. We all have to ask ourselves as men, are the conversations that we're having productive? Are they meant to bring elucidation, or are they meant to bring obfuscation? Meaning what? Are they meant to bring enlightenment, or are they meant to muddy the waters? If the conversation that you're having is meant to muddy the waters, you're wasting your time. Stop wasting your time having conversations that will lead to no solution. Stop wasting your time doing things that are not going to lead to anything productive. That's the main thing with the so-called black man. I don't waste time going back and forth with the woman. The woman has to come out the box pretty much ready to go. No assembly required. If you have to spend too much time building up the female, that's an investment that oftentimes is going to end up in junk stock. All right? Don't invest in junk stock.
would have rather her lock me in a
Have you
closet.
said
Your
this
Honor.
to him?
Your Honor, I did say that to him. I said that to
Often?
him. No, sir. I actually told him that once.
Well, how old was it?
He was about 16, 17 years old. And if I may, I did tell my son that I would love myself more than I loved him, because in order for me to be a mother to him, I have to love myself first. And then I can love someone else. Then I can take care of someone else. But if I do not love and take care of myself, how am I going to be able to love and take care of the people who I'm
All right.
Sounds like some bullshit psychology. At the end of the day, you have to love yourself before you even have a child. When you bring the child into the world, you have to be willing to sacrifice everything for the child. The child has to come before you. So for you to look a child in the face, she claims he was a teenager by that time. He says he was 5 years old. I believe him, I don't believe her. For him to say that she said that to him because I have to love myself before I can love him, what would be the parameters around which you would make that statement to him in the first place? Is it after the damage was already done and he's starting to act out and conduct himself in a very untoward manner, and now you have to create these guidelines and these rules for your relationship with him to show him that you're going to put yourself over him because you're not going to allow him to tear you down? Sounds like some feminazi nonsense. I have little doubt in my mind that whoever the man was that impregnated her probably left because he realized that she was crazy, but he should have saw that before he impregnated her. Because now he has a young son in the world who's broken.
That's.
Did you think it would cause him damage?
Well,
It's not about whether or not she thought it would cause him damage, it's whether or not she cared.
my son is a brilliant man. He's been raised. He's been raised not only by myself as a single...
Hey, let me say this. A lot of you brothers out there are brilliant. That's why I tell you to put the weed down. A lot of you guys get upset when I say that. And oftentimes it's because you don't want to accept that you have a dependency. In order for the so-called black man to come out of this situation, he has to be as clear-headed as possible. So, my channel's not for weed heads. None of my channels will ever be for weed heads. I don't have time for dumb shit. If you don't like that, oh well.
As a single parent, my son has been raised with the company and the blessing of my family. We've all raised him. We come from a very strong military.
So you
family.
were in the household outside of the military?
Of course I was. When I served in South Carolina, after I got out my training and I got my permanent duty station, my son was with me.
How old was he?
He was with me when he was 3 years old up until the time he was about 4 or 5. Then I took him back home to Mississippi for my family to help me raise him.
Bullshit. Your son was with you from 3 to 4 years old. So you had him for 1 year. Then you took him back to Mississippi so your mother and grandmother could raise him. Why is that? Because that was before feminism hit. So the woman actually valued raising the child as opposed to trying to compete with men more. And I'm sure that a lot of people are not going to like what I just stated there. It's okay. It is what it is. But the main purpose that the woman has is as a wife and as a mother. And once again, a lot of people are not going to like what I'm saying. I really don't care. We need the woman to be a mother and a wife. And that's why I tell cats all the time, once again, use many scruples in choosing the woman that you impregnate. Because she has to understand her importance in those two vocations. Because that's going to take up a lot of her energy, a lot of her time, man. Being a wife and a mother. That's why those vocations are held in such high esteem. These females that are all over the internet trying to argue with men, and they always say the same dumb shit. I've been married for 15 years. Well, if you've been married for 15 years and you're on the internet trying to argue with people that don't know you and don't give a fuck about you, you must be a very poor excuse for a wife and a mother. Because somebody who has time to do things that are really not productive, they're taking time away from making sure that they're fulfilling their duties. That's how that goes. But to get back to the point, she raised him for a year and said, I can't deal with this. I don't really like this. I want to go out and have adventures. That's why many of these females join the military. They want to go out and have adventures, get banged out by random men, and, feel like they're still stately because they have to stand at attention and they get given duties, and, they can run around with strange people and go to different locations. And most of these females in the military, they're number big jump offs. A lot of people are not going to like what I'm saying. It's okay. But most of these females in the military, they're big jump offs.
while I was performing my military duty to this country. So at any points in times where I was stable within the military, I would get my son back.
How old was he when you left the military?
Well, I went into the United States Navy in 1987. My son was right under 3 years old when I left, and then and he stayed with his father during that time. And I got out of the military in 1991. In 91, I moved into public housing because I wanted to finish my education. I moved to Washington, D.C. to go to Howard University. I took my son then back to my family so that I could get myself settled in Washington, D.C. So from 92 to about 94, 95, my son was living with my mother and then with my grandmother.
Why?
Because at that time I was a struggling student.
You didn't want to deal with being a mother. But once again, because in this society they deify the feminine principle as opposed to honoring it. That's why I open up this video. You have to honor your father and mother, but you don't deify them, because they can be wrong as well. And you have to be able to have constructive conversations with them when you come into adulthood to show that you still have that honor for them as long as they did their job in raising you. But sometimes they may have certain beliefs or certain associations, affiliations, affinities for things that you know are not correct. But you still have to honor them. But you don't venerate them or worship them. And that's what Mother's Day and Father's Day is about. It's about worship. You're supposed to honor someone every day as opposed to picking one day out the year. And it's really also to subscribe to consumerism. But just to get back to the point, this female here, she never wanted to be a mother. She says she had him from 3 years old to 4 years old. Then he lived with his dad. And then she wanted to go to Howard University, so she had him live with her mother and her grandmother. She was trying to shirk that responsibility. And I'm not even really going to go into much on her because once you pretty much have someone pegged, you know what they're about. Never expect someone to do things that are not consistent with their character. Once you know someone hates men or things of that nature, you don't impregnate them in the first place. So I'd be interested in knowing from the plaintiff what his rapport was with his father, what his relationship was like with his father, and what was going on with that.
I wasn't able to take care of the both of us in Washington, D.C.
Oh, and I forgot, you put yourself first, so go ahead.
Exactly.
Go ahead. What else? That's what you just said.
Yes,
that.
sir.
What are you talking about? You said I got to put myself first in order to be able to take care of the child. Yeah, I looked him in his eye and I told him that. You abandoned your child, left him for your mother and your grandmother to raise. Let's go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge Mathis.
Here, sir.
And that's very pervasive in this society. Most of these liberal females don't really want to raise a child. They give them to the mother and to the grandmother to raise.